That's me. See, here's the way it works. My phone never goes off ever. I don't let it ding except for a few people, and there are rare exceptions here. I've got my wife, my lovely wife. If she texts me, I have my phone on silent, but it will ding. It will ding, letting me know that it's important. My sponsees, the guys I work with in my 12-step program, they're on the list for sure. And then my son. Now, no one ever texts me really unless it's important, those people. But my son occasionally will just go off on a tangent. So I started to record this. I've recorded this twice so far. And each time around, ding, ding. I'm like, what the fuck? So I finally had to turn my phone off there. So there's my story and I'm sticking to it. Hey, I'm John Solo and we're doing a Storytime video. This one is for Jilted Jaren. This is by the lovely Nora Phoenix. And this is a new series of hers. And this actually came out on Audible. I'm recording this on April 6th. This actually came out on Audible, I believe, on April 4th. So it's been out a couple days. I've had the Storytime recorded. I've been recording all of my sessions, and then we kind of pick the best little segment, the best chapter, and we'll just drop that in, and I do an intro for it. And we've had this recorded now for a week, somewhere in there, but I just haven't gotten around to getting this video done. I've been busy. So I'm doing it now, and hopefully you guys enjoy this. I'll be putting out the sample today on YouTube as well, so you can hear just a sample of this as well. But anyways, let's read the blurb, and then I'll flip over to the actual recording session. If you haven't seen one of these Storytime videos yet, the way we're doing them, when I flip over here, it's actually going to be a pre-recorded session that I did, and it's the actual session. So you're going to hear mistakes. You're going to hear me talking to the crowd in Discord. It's like the camera's not there. You're like a fly on the wall. USA Today best-selling author Nora Phoenix kicks off a new contemporary gay... Did she say USA Today best-selling author? Holy shit, Nora. Look at you, man. Whoop, whoop. You go, girl. Kicks off a new contemporary gay romance series with the story of a tattoo artist who finally has a shot at winning the heart of the one man he never thought he could have. I bet you'll probably get him. Years of pining, years of keeping his distance, years of lusting after Jaren, the one man Reed couldn't have, because Jaren is straight. They're never straight. Never. Worse, he's engaged to Reed's sister. In other words, he's off limits. Impossible. Well, I'm both. But a day before the wedding, she calls it off, leaving Jaren with nowhere to go. What's a man to do? Well, offer Jaren a place to stay, of course. A shoulder to cry on, a bed to sleep in, a big fat cock to put in your bum. She's a USA Today bestselling author. She didn't write that. I interjected that. And maybe someone to share that bed with. Jilted is the first book in the Foster Brothers series, a contemporary romance series about four men who chose to be brothers. It has hurt, comfort, found family, bisexual awakening, first-time gay, and a guy who finally realizes that what he wanted most was right in front of him the whole time. Cock. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this. Have fun. I will catch you all in the next round. See you later, and peace. Chapter 11. Clearing out part of the storage room in Rainbow Ink took less than half an hour, with both of them working together. Once that was done, Reed rented a U-Haul van, and they took an Uber over to pick it up, then drove over to Bridget's. She wasn't home, of course, but she'd given Reed the entrance code to her security system. Jaren hadn't commented on the fact that she'd already changed it from what it had been before, and they let themselves in. Bridget had put Jaren's possessions by the door, neatly packed in moving boxes. She'd been busy over the weekend before leaving for a trip, and the efficiency made Reed wince. It seemed so cold, so emotionless. Like, as soon as she'd made her decision, she wanted everything that belonged to Jaren out of her life. Then again, that was how she was, and so was their father. Jaren's stuff seemed so little, maybe 20 boxes, and half of those were filled with clothes and shoes, judging by the labels and her elegant handwriting. Did he have so few possessions? What had happened to all the furniture from his condo? Knowing his sister, Reed guessed she wouldn't have wanted. Gina, yeah, disease aside, I don't have a disease other than being crazy. And it sucks for me, too. And I even have 2 screens. Have so few possessions? What had happened to all the furniture from his condo? Knowing his sister, Reed guessed she would have wanted everything new. So had he sold it all? Not to be nosy, but what did you do with the rest of your stuff when you moved in here? He asked. Jaren shrugged. I sold it to a company who does furnished rentals, and they took all of it at once. I could have gotten a better price if I'd sold everything separately, but I didn't have the time. You didn't want to keep any of it? Jaren hesitated. I don't want to speak ill of your sister, but she didn't want you to. Reed sighed. I figured as much. But you had nothing you had emotional ties to? I had some pictures she didn't want me to put up, and some holiday decorations. Figured as much. But you had nothing you had emotional ties to? I had some pictures she didn't want me to put up, and some holiday decorations, so I boxed those up. He pointed to 2 boxes that looked different from the rest. They're in there. That's it? Reed had a hard time believing that. If he had to make that choice, well, he wouldn't be able to get rid of at least half of his stuff. The dining table he had restored himself and had poured hours of work in. The couch he had purchased with the first profits from his shop that he'd been so proud of. Oh, God, his insanely comfortable mattress, his coffee machine, all the art he'd bought. He could think of so many things he wouldn't give up. How had Jaren let go of his stuff that easily? When you grow up with a hoarder, you develop a different relationship with things, Jaren said. I've seen what holding onto stuff can do to a person, to a house. I promised myself I wouldn't care about any of it, only about what truly matters, and none of that is material. Friendship, love, a family. That's what's most important, not what's in your bank account or how big your house is. Wow. Those simple words hit Reed hard. On the surface, they might be such a cliché and nothing he hadn't heard before, but Jaren was living that truth. So many people made empty statements like that from a comfortable life. Easy to say you didn't care about money when you had enough, but Jaren was putting it into practice. Yes, he had a good job, or he used to have, but he still focused on what was most important to him. You're right. And I needed to hear that. Jaren shuffled his feet. I didn't mean it as an attack on you or your family. Reed put a hand on his shoulder, the contact sending a flare of warmth through him. I didn't take it that way, but I did grow up rich and privileged, and it's easy to forget sometimes how that has shaped me. A lot of things I consider essential are, in fact, luxuries, and it's good to be reminded of that. Jaren relaxed under his touch, and with regret, Reed let go of him. You mean that coffee machine that probably cost more than I paid in mortgage per month? Reed's eyes grew warm, and he rubbed his neck.
Stop. Reed's ears grew warm.
Well, his eyes did too. They heated up. That coffee machine that probably cost more than I paid in mortgage per month? Reed's ears grew warm, and he rubbed his neck. Oh, hush now. No need to call me out. Jaren held up his hands. I'll back off. I promise. Don't. The word flew out of Reed's lips before he even realized it. I mean...
Stop. The word flew off Reed's lips.
Held up his hands. I'll back off. I promise. Don't. The word flew off Reed's lips before he even realized it. I mean, don't hold back on the truth. Not when it's something I need to hear. It may be uncomfortable, but that's the only way we grow as humans, isn't it? Jaren studied him, his brown eyes searching Reed's face. Was he making sure Reed meant it? Finally, he nodded. Okay. Reed didn't address the doubt he picked up on. Was he making sure Reed meant it? Finally, he nodded. Okay. Reed didn't address the doubt he picked up on. Jaren would find out himself that Reed was serious about this. Let's pack up. At least Bridget had made it easy for them by putting all Jaren's stuff in boxes already, and they loaded the boxes into the van in no time. That's it, right? Reed asked. Yeah. Let me double-check to make sure. Reed followed Jaren as he walked back inside. A sad expression crossed over Jaren's face as he stepped into the living room and looked around. I really liked this house. It had character, Reed said. Had? Jaren asked as they walked out. Reed locked the door behind them. Had? Jaren asked as they walked out. Reed locked the door behind them. I watched the episode where they showed the transformation this house had gone through before Bridget bought it. To be honest, I liked it better before the renovation, which was a bit too drastic for my taste. Jaren hummed in agreement, leaning against the van. Same. But Bridget loved that everything went new. My taste. Leaning against the van. Same. But Bridget loved that everything was new, including the kitchen and bathrooms. You didn't put your foot down that you wanted to find a different place? She was paying for it. Jaren looked guilty. I didn't think I had a right to an opinion, and I never even offered to pay part of it. Jaren looked guilty. I didn't think I had a right to an opinion, and I never even offered to pay part of it. Why would you if the house wasn't yours? In hindsight, I should have insisted on being on the mortgage. I thought it was easier this way. In all fairness, she's never been difficult about money, and her having a lot more of it than me. Reed hesitated. He could avoid the topic, but sooner or later it would come up again. He'd rather know the truth. Does she know about your financial situation? No. I still don't know why I told you. You can trust me. I won't say a word to her, or anyone else. Oh, I know. I never considered anything else. That's interesting, because you don't even know me. Jaren frowned. Huh. You're right. Strange, because I don't trust easily, especially when it comes to money. Reed put a hand on Jaren's neck in what was supposed to be a firm grip, but turned into something much more tender. Jaren still wasn't protesting or even showing signs he was uncomfortable.
Stop.
What was supposed to be a firm grip, but turned into something much more tender. Still, Jaren wasn't protesting or even showing signs he was uncomfortable. On the contrary, was it Reed's imagination or was Jaren leaning into the touch? Why didn't you tell her? He asked, gently. Jaren lowered his gaze and Reed kept rubbing his neck. Shame, I suppose. It wasn't easy keeping up with her when she had so much more money to spend. She knew what I made to the dollar, so I couldn't tell her I couldn't afford a weekend in Napa or go skiing in Aspen. I made it work, but it was tight with the debt I had to pay off. Student loans, right? Something like that. Something like that? What did that mean? I'm not following. When Jaren lifted those brown eyes to him, he let go of the man's neck. I'm paying for Lagan's law degree. What? Jaren straightened his shoulders. Not all of it. Lagan works full-time as a paralegal and does law school part-time, but he doesn't make enough to pay for it himself, not with the costs of living here. So I'm paying the rest. That's an awful lot of money. And not what he'd expected. Norden and I were the first who graduated from high school. Hadley was a year behind us, Lagan too. We wanted to move somewhere together, all at the same time, which was illogical. Behind us, Lagan too. We wanted to move somewhere together, all at the same time, which was a logistic challenge. Whenever we had enough money, Norden and I, both who graduated from high school. Hadley was a year behind us, Lagan too. We wanted to move somewhere together, all at the same time, which was a logistic challenge. Whenever we had enough money, Norden and I both took college classes in Chicago, hoping to transfer those credits to our colleges of... We wanted to move somewhere together, all at the same time, which was a logistic challenge. Whenever we had enough money, Norden and I both took college classes in Chicago, hoping to transfer those credits to our college of choice. When we decided on Seattle, we couldn't afford to pay for college, at least not for all four of us. So, we made a deal. Norden and I would go first, with financial assistance from Lagan and Hadley, who both got full-time jobs to support us, and when we graduated and had jobs, we'd pay for them. And that's what we did. We shared a 2-bedroom apartment with the four of us, living frugally, and made it work.
Stop. Lived frugally.
Jobs, we'd pay for them. And That's what we did. We shared a 2-bedroom apartment with the 4 of us, lived frugally, and made it work. Reed had to swallow away the emotion that had risen inside. Bedroom apartment with the 4 of us, lived frugally, and made it work. Reed had to swallow away the emotion that had risen inside him. The more I learn about you and your brothers, the more in awe I am. None of you has parental support? Jaren shook his head. I never knew who my father was. And my mom is dead. Her family washed their hands off her when her hoarding got out of control and she refused to heed their advice. When I went into the foster system, DCFS contacted them, but they weren't interested in taking me in, so I never reached out to them later on. The others, well, some of them still have contact with parents or family, but none of us has ever received any financial support. Grants, scholarships, those kinds of things, yes. Norden became an expert at finding little-known funding opportunities, but we've always been on our own. Reed had to ask, Does Bridget know all this? Jaren curled his hands around his middle. No, I'm not judging you, only trying to understand. Why wouldn't you tell this to the woman you wanted to spend the rest of your life with? I was scared she'd break up with me, Jaren whispered. Over this? Her life was so perfect. I didn't want to spoil it by bringing up my troubled past, my baggage. Reed's heart broke for the pain in that statement. You underestimate her. But I can understand you'd feel that way. Shame is a powerful motivator. She was everything I'd always wanted in a partner. Smart, successful, positive. Not to mention beautiful and kind, and I thought we were a good match. But apparently I was wrong. His list of qualities for Bridget sounded sad, though Reed couldn't put his finger on why. Hell, he barely recognized his sister in that description. Jaren could have been describing at least 20 women Reed knew, like she hadn't been real to him, but more of a dream, a vision, someone to aspire to, just like the career he'd wanted, the success. Not that he'd tell Jaren that. He'd have to come to that realization himself. You'll find someone, he said. You really think there's someone who would want me, with all my baggage and hang-ups? Reed wanted to jump up and down with his hand in the air and yell, Pick me, pick me! But he didn't. If he wanted to stand a chance with Jaren, he'd have to be patient. Me, with all my baggage and hang-ups? Reed wanted to jump up and down with his hand in the air and yell, Pick me, pick me! But he didn't. If he wanted to stand a chance with Jaren, he'd have to be patient. The man had a lot of learning to do. So instead, he squeezed his shoulder. A cute, successful guy like you? Absolutely. Jaren blinked. You think I'm cute? Oops. Hell yes. He removed his hand. You're downright hot. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Now, let's... Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Now, let's go before one of my sister's neighbors calls the cops on us because we've been standing in her driveway for 15 minutes.